Let's go now to Ukraine and the battle within the Azovstal complex. Ukrainians are facing non-stop shelling from Russian forces. A local official said if there is hell in the world, it's in Azovstal. Vladimir Putin's forces have breached the compound, according to Ukrainian fighters there. But an advisor to President Zelensky said the Ukrainians repelled the incoming Russians in the last 24 hours. And a new post online shows the spirit of Ukrainian defenders. The soldiers are singing the battle hymn of the Ukrainian army.
Солодше нам у бою вмирати, ніж жити в путах, як німі раби.
Beyond Azovstal, Ukrainian armed forces say Russians have had no success with efforts to break through front lines in Donetsk and Luhansk over the last 24 hours. This drone video from a pro-Russian social channel gives really extraordinary perspective of the fighting. Take a second look at your screen. The drone appears to have been used by Russian infantry to help hunt down the last Ukrainian defenders in the area. And look closely, in one case, it hovers over the location where the Ukrainians are cornered. You see them on their stomachs on the yard there. At least 6 of them, as we watch this video, they later surrender. CNN's Scott McLean is in Lviv, that's in western Ukraine. Scott, Ukrainians say the relentless shelling of Azovstal shows how Russian forces once again are not standing by that promise to let the civilians out to some safety.
But, Victor, help is on the way. That is according to the UN Special Envoy to Ukraine, who said that an evacuation convoy is en route to the city right now, specifically to get civilians out of the Azovstal steel complex, a place that he calls a kind of bleak hell, surely an understatement there. This convoy is being arranged with the help of the Red Cross. Obviously, the UN is involved as well. This was a successful formula on Sunday, but since then, there has not been any kind of a success. Now, nothing happens quickly, of course, in Mariupol. Apologies, the sound that you hear there is just the end of an air raid alert that was going on in the city, and you can hear the sirens there as well, Victor. You'll remember that it was last Friday, a week ago tomorrow, that President Zelensky announced that there would be an evacuation operation, didn't give any more details. It wasn't until Sunday that we found out what that was, and not until Tuesday until they showed up in Zaporizhia. So, Ukrainian officials are unlikely to say much of anything between now and when there's a successful operation. They go into radio silence mode, they say, to avoid doing anything to jeopardize the success of the operation. The Russians last night had offered an olive branch, saying that they would open humanitarian corridors for people to get out of the plant today, tomorrow, and Saturday, and go in whatever direction that they would like. But the Azov regiment, which is leading the fighting from that plant, says that the Russians have not kept their word. They say that the Russians continue to storm the plant on the ground, something that the Russians deny. They also say that the fighting has been extremely fierce there. And a deputy commander of that regiment, Victor, pleaded with the international community to come up with some kind of a deal to get people out. And specifically, he also singled out his commander-in-chief, Volodymyr Zelensky, saying that a deal not only needs to be brokered to get civilians out, but also to get wounded soldiers out as well, who are dying in agony, in his words, Victor.
All right, we'll see if the UN and Red Cross convoy can make more progress there. Let's turn toward Dnipro now, where I understand you've learned of a Russian missile that hit a bridge. What do you know?
Yeah, so this was earlier this morning. There were 2 missiles, we're told by local officials. One of them was struck down by the air defense system. The second one hit a railway bridge, and we have video of that. And it's pretty remarkable that there were no injuries. At least that's the initial assessment. What there was obviously huge disruption to the trains in that area, which were not able to get through. This has been sort of a common theme with the Russians in targeting train infrastructure and power infrastructure in particular. They don't like that Ukraine is able to use the trains not only to get civilians to and from the front lines, but also that they can get supplies and weapons to the front lines. You mentioned the fighting in the east as well, Victor. The Ukrainians say that they are holding the line. At least they've been holding the line for the last 24 hours or so. The Russians not able to make very much progress on the ground. And so what they're resorting to instead, though, is bombing, missile campaigns, and artillery strikes as well, trying to force the Ukrainians back from those front lines, but the Ukrainians say that they are having some amount of success. There is also some fighting in the southern parts of the country, Mykolaiv, Kherson. The Ukrainians say that they're making some progress there, but again, a lot of injuries reported in the last 24 hours from shelling there, which has been pretty relentless in some areas.
Scott McLean with the latest from Lviv there. And Scott, the cacophony surrounding you, the air raid sirens, the dogs barking because they're annoyed by these sirens, and this happens several times a day, as we've seen over the last several months. Unbelievable. People still living through that. Scott McLean, thank you. Let's go to Kramatorsk now, where Russian forces launched attacks on the city center for the first time in a month. Dozens were hurt after 6 strikes there. And remember, this is a residential area. CNN's Sam Kiley surveyed the damage.
The scale of the blast is quite extraordinary, and so is, frankly, the effort being made to clean up already. I mean, it's just a few hours ago that these impacts were felt ripping through these residential buildings. And I've been on the other side of these buildings. They look the same on this side, next to the blast, as they do on the other side. The blast simply rushed clean through these buildings, tearing them to pieces. Mercifully, there were 25 people have been wounded across the city in 3 different locations. There was also a blast quite close to the administrative headquarters. There's only been 6 people hospitalized and 1 person is critical. That's in stark contrast to the last time Kramatorsk was hit in earnest about a month ago, when the railway station was struck by a surface-to-surface missile, a long-range missile, probably similar to the one that landed here. That killed at least 50 people waiting to try to evacuate from this city. As a consequence, though, of the evacuations, the toll in terms of wounded and dead from these, frankly, atrocities. This is deliberate targeting with not dumb bombs. This was not an attack that came from an aircraft. This was clearly a surface-to-surface missile, and the range would indicate that they're guided missiles, not the stupid missiles, if you like, of multiple rocket launching system, but much more likely the guided missiles that are available to the Russians, such as Iskander and similar. In that context, therefore, this is a deliberate act against Kramatorsk, which is really the strategic prize for the Russians. If they can capture this town, as far as the Putin administration is concerned, it may be a possibility that they could then believe that they've achieved some kind of a victory and maybe stop their advance at this point. But they are at least 25 kilometers away to the north. They're pushing down in various salients around. They're also trying to come in from the east. They've had moderate success and some losses around Kharkiv, but this is the ongoing part of their campaign. Pound the civilian areas into submission and then try to occupy the ashes.
Sam Kiley reporting there for us. Thank you, Sam.